Hello and please welcome to this webinar of the several webinars in EKTOS webinar series related to IoT technologies. And today we will be talking about new cybersecurity regulations that are in force in the European Union and how to utilize them for the IoT product development. My name is Alexander Lubimov. I am Business Director on EKTOS Development, and I want to welcome you to this webinar. So let's browse through the agenda very fast. We'll be talking about introduction of EKTOS and the speakers. We'll be talking about why cybersecurity matters. Then we'll look into the state of the art and the worldwide regulations, understand in details about NIS and NIS2 directives, as well as Cyber Resilience Act, and that is enforced in the European Union. Then it will be talking how to implement that as a process during the development of different IoT products. And then there will be a small practical part of this webinar talking about typical threats and vulnerabilities that we can see in the IoT products. Then we will wrap up and then talk a little bit about future webinars that we're gonna host in 2023. So a little bit about EKTOS. Who are we? First of all, I would like to say that we are a Danish-born consultancy that was started back in 2007 in Viborg, and since that time we have been growing successfully to roughly 120 people across 3 business areas, namely electronics development, type testing and approvals, and electronic manufacturing services. The current geographies for EKTOS are the following. We are in Denmark, represented in 3 cities, Viborg, Struer and Copenhagen, Ukraine, Ivano-Frankivsk, and in Slovenia, in the city of Maribor. The biggest development area for EKTOS is electronics development, and we are roughly 51 engineers in the business area. So, why important the IoT products are for the EKTOS portfolio? Well, we have been doing roughly 50 IoT projects during the last 5 years or so, with the budget of roughly 4 million Danish crowns. So that is why we position IoT as the strategic part of the EKTOS portfolio. For today's speakers, we'll be listening to Mr. Sergey Shavshin, who is the CTO in EKTOS development, and obviously me, Alexander Lubimov, who is the business director in EKTOS development. So let's talk a little bit about why IoT and the cybersecurity are important. First of all, I would like to bring to your attention this small statistical data brought up by IoT Analytics, saying that more or less every year we have roughly 20% growth of the IoT market. And what also is important to say is that IoT grows drastically together with digitalization. And one of the, I would say, reasons for the digitalization to really push the IoT to grow is that we have also the big tech giants. I think everyone has been reading about it recently. The tech giants are really laying off a lot of people because of AI, because of digitalization is highlighting the efficiency problems and stuff, and all this actually pushes IoT development in particular up as well. So that's what we can see on this analytical slide. I think what is also important to say is that the IoT technologies are still pretty young, and many technologies will converge over time. That is also why I think it's important to mention that we will be looking into into the saturation of the market, and probably in something like 10 years or so. Okay, so before we jump on the cybersecurity, I just want to let all of us align on the topic what cybersecurity is. And according to IBM and Cisco, the cybersecurity is the practice of protecting systems, networks, programs, and data from digital attacks. That's the way we want to talk on cybersecurity today. Why the cybersecurity matters? I just wanted to to put few good examples of what is the size of the cybersecurity problem, so to say. And as you can see on the screen, is that the annual cost of the cybercrime will reach 10.5 trillion US dollars by 2025. This is a lot of money, and that's what Fortinet kind of prescribes. I think what is important also to mention is that for many IoT businesses, where the IoT way of presenting data and allowing data to be worked through by the end user, the cyber security threat or cybersecurity problem is really end of the game type of the problem. So it's kind of loss of the business, more or less. That's what we can see from different companies. So, and what is also really interesting to mention, if we look into the analytical data that I presented 2 slides ago, is that only 3% of the overall IoT market turnover is set aside for the cybersecurity. So only this small amount of the cybersecurity work through is associated to the to the cybersecurity today, and that's definitely one of the problems we want to address. So let's talk a little bit about the state of the art and the regulations today. First of all, if you take up the European directives and regulations out there, and that's the topic of our webinar today, there are actually the few important ones. First of all, we have two directives, NIS and NIS2, and the first one was as old as from 2016. Then we have the Directive of Resilience of Critical Entities, CER, and then we have Cyber Resilience Act, CRA, that is relatively fresh. Also, we have the EU Security Union Strategy, kind of defining the way how the European Union wants to go along with the new arising problems in the cybersecurity matters, but also how the system's resilience shall be addressed. If you look into the American geography, there are actually a little bit more regulations out there, and the regulations are mainly broken down to different industries where you can basically have a little bit more specific regulations to one industry and another, because for instance you have a difference in medical industry where you have to protect patient data and stuff, where you can also potentially work with the equipment that can lead to the lethal consequences if something goes wrong. But all in all, I would like to mention that there is an IoT Cybersecurity Improvement Act that is as fresh as from 2020, and there are different regulations across the states that are a little bit more particular. The good way to look into cybersecurity allegations in the USA is to look into the NIST regulation you can see here on the screen, and that's one of the good ways also to follow some practical, I would say, advices how to build your IoT products. Okay, if you look into the AUS, so-called New Zealand and Australia market, there are different regulations like Information Security Manual, Critical Infrastructure Act, National Cybersecurity Center as the kind of the entity that puts up different regulations out there. If we go to China, and many of us still think that China is a little unregulated, but in reality China, representing the biggest IoT market as for today, actually have pretty solid regulations out there, and one of those is Data Security Law and Cyber Administration of China as the as the institution that kind of highlights all these different regulations, is actually putting up a lot of different regulations here and there, and it's really complex. If you look finally to the Japanese regulations, well, there are also different cybersecurity regulations like Basic Act of Cybersecurity, and then we have also the general framework for the secure IoT systems that is called NISC. So that's something what to look into when you plan your product to be secure, and you plan to address the cybersecurity in a particular manner. So today we'll be concentrating on EU regulations. So that's what we'll be looking more into detail. So if you look into the the CER regulation and directive, basically it's addressing the specific critical infrastructure, and on the critical infrastructure they define the particular types of systems. It can be railroad, can be payment systems, it can be different kinds of things, and basically this directive is in force together with NIS2 directive as from January 16th 2023. So basically it's extremely fresh, you can see that. So and the main idea of this directive is to support and make a framework for the entities that are running critical infrastructure. That's really important. I would say for the smaller systems, rather than the central railroad control or traffic control system and payment systems and stuff like that, I would say that this directive will have probably the smallest influence on your final product. If you look into the Cyber Resilience Act, and that's really something what can be used and what is important to follow, there are four main definitions that are suggested in the act. The first definition is that manufacturers have to ensure that the security is improved, meaning that there shall be process, there shall be response to cybersecurity problems that are known, and basically it's kind of the same as you can see from the general CE compliance directives, that there is a topic saying that all vendors have to guarantee quality, have to ensure that the quality is put on top of everything else in the product's development. And that's basically what this first definition says. There is a second definition that basically mean that there shall be a coherent cybersecurity framework in the company, meaning that you shall demonstrate that there is a response, the holistic response, I would better say, from the hardware and software development perspective, that kind of shows the transparent way of getting to the secure product via the different ways of addressing both pillars like hardware and software at the same time. And the good thing here to mention as the kind of practical guide where you can look into what it means is to look into the EEC 62443 standards or ISO 2701, where some of the regulations are actually put together that can help you to respond and provide this coherent cybersecurity framework. The definition 3 and 4 are more about actually informing and making the good way to educating your end users of your product to actually to be a bit more, I would say, ready for the cybersecurity matters and cybersecurity features of your product. If you look into the example of the EEC 62443, that is called, Industrial Communication Networks and Networking System Security Framework, you can see that basically it opens up 7 foundational requirements, and all those requirements are applicable to the different, I would say, levels of the system design. You can follow this by looking into this technical specification. Let's take a little bit more holistic and also helicopter view of the Cyber Resilience Act. And what does it say? Well, basically it says that all products that are required to be cybersecurity kind of proven or watertight, they actually broken down into 2 classes. The first class, or I would say the 2 types. The first type is default, meaning that the product is not of the critical importance. So even if it has been compromised, doesn't generate any major losses or any major problems, either to the vendor or to the user. And then there is a critical type, and then the critical type is broken down in two classes inside, and those classes are more or less dependent on how critical the product would be in terms of losses, in terms of consequences related to the cyber security threat being activated. And if you want to understand how to choose your product compliance towards either default category or the critical category, you can look up NX3. That is the amendment for the CRA Act 2019-1020, and then you can basically find the responses to your questions. If you look into the examples of the product classes, I kind of wanted to highlight some important classes that would be more or less applicable for the typical electronic IoT products. Class 1 was the smaller, I would say, severity of the cybersecurity threat, includes the following interesting parts, like microcontrollers. And microcontrollers here, it's not an IC, it's not a small chip you install in your product. That's rather the small control system that is making control of some kind of system. It could be, for instance, a digital thermostat sitting on your radiator. It could be the heat pump controller. It could be a small controller that you put into your fridge and stuff like that. So that's what they call the microcontroller. Then the physical network interface presence in the product automatically kind of push the product into the class 1 of the critical category. That is important to remember when you design your product. And then also the product that are containing the secure bootloaders and patch management software, they also have to be classified as class 1. So basically, whenever you have the firmware upload mechanism or remove firmware update mechanism, that would actually qualify as the secure bootloader and patch management software here. If you look into the class 2, we can obviously see some outstanding subclasses as well, and one of those will be smart meters. And I believe this is really important also to keep the user data in a preserved manner. Then we have the robot sensors and actuators, and that's really a good way to respond to growing robotization and automation of different kinds, mainly from the perspective of kind of securing end users from different safety problems, and also the physical violence by malfunctioning different actuators and sensors. Then you have industrial IoT. Well, obviously everything what is inside the manufacturing shall be treated as industrial IoT. And what is really important and also kind of nice to see here is that hypervisors and containers execution machines are put up here as critical, and as critical as class 2 criticality. And why is that? Well, I think it's very simple, because if you have the hypervisor and the container that can execute some particular business logic data, you can potentially put up some software that is not actually intended to be there, and then you can compromise the whole system out of that. So let's see actually how the industry ripple was responding to the Cyber Resilience Act. First of all, I would say there is an ambiguity to many points in the Cyber Resilience Act, and mainly those points are related to to the regulations telling vendors that the quality is really important for the products. And why this ambiguity has been making a little ripple is that I think it's kind of clear for the vendors and also for developers that the quality is on top of everything, despite the fact that we still see different products being a little bit less mature here and there. But I still think that many of us are working with the quality as first priority for the products. Secondly, I would want to mention is that there are particular challenges in regards to connecting Cyber Resilience Act regulations to the open source software cybersecurity kind of responses, I would say, because depending to what kind of class of cybersecurity importance you are doing, you have to manage known or found vulnerabilities information in a specific manner, and those manners are pretty different in CRA and open source software, and that's really a little kind of thin ice, so to say, in regards to how the industry will continue using those regulations. I think the third thing what I want to mention is that many good ideas, many guidelines in the Cyber Resilience Act are top level and of course I would say kind of idealistic and also transparent, but they are not broken down into the practical matters yet. So it means that from the helicopter view you kind of understand, you commit, but how to implement it in reality, that's a little too unclear yet. And the last point what I want to mention is that from the audit perspective, from understanding who can help you to figure out if your product is fulfilling the Cyber Resilience Act requirements, there are very limited amount of companies who can actually help you with that, and EKTOS is one of those companies. So how to address the regulation? Some practical, I would say, inputs from me. First of all, I think one way or another, the cybersecurity regulations have to enter the CE marking process, and the NIS2 directive will appear in the declaration of conformity for the IoT products. I think this is important to keep an eye on that and start addressing your IoT products today with getting ready for that. The products risk analysis and breakdown and assessment of different cybersecurity threats and potential consequences of that shall be taken into considerations during the design process. And to be frank, it's really kind of the same what you do as the risk assessment process, simply in the beginning of designing your product. So I think it's kind of if you knowledgeable in the general CE compliance approach, I think the cybersecurity compliance will be just yet another swimming lane where you have to analyze risk, you have to provide response, and document that on the product design level. So how we can address all those cybersecurity regulations by simply designing in those requirements. First of all, and let me just present this 4 generic rules I would suggest to use to be super practical, but also kind of easy to implement. First of all, we need to specifically address the cybersecurity during the product development. It's important that we set aside time, we make the analysis, we have the artifact generated and stuff like that. So it's not falling between the chairs during the short time to market driven development process or whatsoever that really pushes hard the development teams. Secondly, cybersecurity requirements shall be handled and broken down as well as all other product requirements. So what does it mean? It means that if you have the product requirement specification today, just set aside a separate chapter for handling cybersecurity requirements and just start dwelling what really shall be there, and that would be the good way to keep an eye and remember those cybersecurity requirements. Then the third one is, and this is really important, is to include cybersecurity assessment, but also specification and also I would say the design approach into your software development lifecycle. you have to respond to the cybersecurity threats, and many of the responses will be definitely, laying into the software part of the things, and that's what you shall address. And if you watch the practical recommendations in the Cyber Resilience Act, you have to look for specific cybersecurity engineering officer and the process to be in place in the company. So what you need to do is to kind of set aside a person who will be your cybersecurity officer and will take the responsibility of enforcing the requirements, keeping eyes open on changes and stuff. If you look into the process approach to the cybersecurity, I just want to bring this, three obvious but yet powerful ways of addressing the cybersecurity. First of all, using something simple and well known in the industry like Deming-Schuher cycle, that is also well known as Plan, Do, Check, Act, would help you to have the practical approach to the cybersecurity response process. And that's what I would recommend to follow on the general terms. Secondly, we have very well known mechanism of addressing the product quality and product failures via FMEA approach, or a management-driven process called FMEA, and that's the good way to actually in the pretty practical, I would say, tool chain, and you can obtain a dozens of trainings all over the industry on how to use FMEA as your design approach, where the failure here basically could be just cyber threat being activated. So it's not any different, again, as I mentioned before, it's not any different from the generic failure due to the some vulnerability in the code, or the business feature not operating in a specific manner and stuff like that. And the last but not least, what I want to mention is that for the functional safety products, many of you have been using the V model towards EC 61508 or EN 62304 for medical products, and the V model can be easily adopted to the cybersecurity responses as well. So let's just fast look into how FMEA looks. You can see that the process that is related to to the analysis of the product under development, and you have the three main, I would say, rulers of how you can classify different consequences for your product, or different threats, or different failures, and basically those three are broken down into severity, occurrence, and detectability rulers, and you can see that there is already a pretty mature process in place that can help you to identify and manage proactively different threats in your product development. If you look into the classical risk management approach to work with whatever we have as the identified risk in the process, we can still use the very classical thing to having 5 lines of different analysis and identifying risks, analyzing them, providing actions, monitoring, and control. So that's pretty easy as for me to do so. And the V model, last but not least, it's a little complex way of doing stuff, especially if you're not trained to work and deal with functional safety. But it's also pretty common, pretty logical here, where you have the design response on the left side and the testing response on the right side, so you can kind of see the coverage of your design ideas and your design response on the right side. So that's about tools, that's about process you can adopt, you can use from something what you have been using for many years before the cybersecurity came to the game. And now I want to talk a little bit about typical threats overview and what is applicable for the embedded electronic products. We'll be not talking about things like denial of service attacks, or we'll be not talking about ransomware, where hackers are, encrypting your data and willing to get some money for data to be decrypted, because those kind of threats are more connected to the bigger IT systems and like clouds or huge IoT platforms and stuff. But let's concentrate on what is really applicable for the smaller electronic products. And if you look into general threats and vulnerabilities, I would want to kind of break down all what is applicable to the hardware and software vulnerabilities. And you can see we'll be from the hardware perspective, we'll be looking to tampering, reverse engineering, and side channel attacks. And in software domain, we'll be looking into RCEs, so-called remote code executions, buffer overflows, and injection attacks. So let's go through it fast and see what's out there. Well, tampering, I think all of us know how the tampering works. When someone gets the physical access to the product, opens up the product, gets connecting to different in-circuit buses like I2C, SPI, and stuff. And basically, what happens here is that you can basically impersonate a different kind of memory or different kind of sensors with something what is not working in intended manner. So that's what happens if you want to to protect your products. If you want to be sure that it's not happening, you have to apply particular data encryption algorithms, so no one can just by simply sniffing the the I2C lines get into the control of your product. If you look into reverse engineering, well, I think it has been really big with working with Chinese and yeah, so many product has been reverse engineered and has been really cloned in a different manners. And when you do reverse engineering, first thing you can do, you can get into the IPR, so you can copycat the product and start selling it. Second problem here is that you get to know the vulnerabilities, when exactly product fails, how to get product fail, and that's really important to have sophisticated process and in place to kind of engineer your product in a way where the reverse engineering will be a little bit more cumbersome than just listing the components and getting product to be pretty obvious to reverse engineer. If you look into the last hardware thing I want to address today, that is called side channel attacks. And this is some of the examples of the side channel attacks could be timing attacks, power monitoring attacks, electromagnetic attacks. This is what people can do to kind of spoil the way the hardware executes its business logic. So it means that the power can be alternated, or someone can emit the particular I would say a EMI field in your product, so it can start failing and stuff like that. And that's what you shall remember during design of your product, but also during the approvals process, that always go one level beyond the specification in testing. Try to push your product to the limits, try to understand what can go wrong and stuff like that. If you move to the software vulnerabilities and threats, one of the well-known vulnerability is remote code execution. Basically what happens here is that you kind of push your remote product to execute some malicious code, and this malicious code can get with different kinds of data exchange. It can get with a new firmware update process, where hackers can just put up a firmware that is not correctly signed or digitally signed or whatever else, and then they get the firmware into the product that does something else than what it's supposed to do. So potentially people can take over the control of the systems and stuff. The buffer overflow vulnerability is also very well known. If you have some dynamic data management in your or dynamic memory and data management in your product, that what can happen is that the attacker can alternate your product to respond, for instance, faster, more frequent to different, TCP/IP, for instance, requests. And by opening too many sockets, you can just overflow the memory allocation processes and overflow some buffers, because the data that is pushed to the product is just suddenly way bigger than the regular way of data exchange, and that can lead to to basically destroying the product, or getting product to reboot and stuff like that. So yeah, and mainly it's about crashing your product. That's how I can phrase it. And then we go to the last kind of class of different injection attacks, and that's really well known, and one of those we already discussed as code injection, but there are a few other ones. One good thing which I want to kind of emphasize here is this number 5, XML external entity injection, and this is very well known thing today, because so many small IoT products would like to use JSON or XML RPC things, and basically what happens is that the website being compromised can ship a small piece of code to all your products, and those small pieces of code that are packed into either XML or JSON, kind of texting you are exchanging with your HTTP server, you can put a piece of software that will be executed by the XML engine or JSON engine at the embedded target, and what happens then, that code can potentially lead to the malfunction or to some data extraction that you not supposed to share with anyone. So these are the typical injection tests you can see in the in the threats and vulnerabilities problems for different kind of IoT products. So let's wrap up and conclude what we have been going through. First of all, there is a particular amount of different threats and vulnerabilities for the IoT products. It's out there, it's developing every single day, and protecting your hardware and software components is really important, like it has never been before. So you have to really respond to that in a good and, I would say, preemptive manner. Majority of different countries and geographies have been increasing their attention to the cyber threats and cyber crimes by responding to the situation by different regulations, directives, acts, and stuff. And it's important to keep your eyes open when you address one geography, one market, or another. So this is really important. So if you look into the EU response with Cyber Resilience Act, CRA, and NIS2 directive, then that's your main point of origin for all the cybersecurity requirements, and you have to really keep your eyes open on that. If we kind of boil down all those regulations, majority of those are, I would say, logical and really straightforward to concentrate on. So don't be afraid of having something super complex or basically that you will have to really understand all the nitty-gritties in the cybersecurity before you can even start up the development of IoT product. The good way here would be to reach out to someone like us in EKTOS and get a consultation done prior to your development process, so you can be sure that you can share the knowledge, you can get insights from the industry prior to the major efforts in design development. So yeah, getting in touch with us in EKTOS could help you to really minimize your efforts related to kind of patching and bug fixing the cybersecurity responses in your software, and actually increase the longevity of your product and maximize the return of investment during your development. So For the next webinars in this series, first of all, I would like to mention that the next webinar will be about radio and EMC related to the radio testing. That will be done by my colleagues from EKTOS Test and Reliability Services Department, and this will be held mid-April, so please subscribe to our LinkedIn EKTOS channel and stay connected, stay tuned for the announcement of the particular date. And I'm very thankful for your attention, and I would really want you to fill out the feedback forms so we can be better next webinars and we can deliver the better tailored message to you next time. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.